Before we begin, I'd just like to say thank you to my friends at Hair Saloon for supporting this podcast and for providing space at their corporate offices to record it. Hair Saloon's mission has as much to do with the restoration of men as it does with the business of hair cutting. They try to make a difference in the lives of the thousands of men who come through their doors every week. Hair Saloon is based in St. Louis, Missouri, and if you've ever been interested in running your own business and want to work with great people, I would highly recommend you check out the Hair Saloon franchise opportunity. Go to hairsaloonfranchise.com to find out more information. That's hairsaloonfranchise.com. Also, a quick reminder to subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already, and please take 2 minutes to give us your review. And if you have a question or a comment you'd like to share with our listeners, go to Suzanne at thesuzannevenkershow.com. Welcome back to the Suzanne Venker Show. I'm your host, Suzanne Venker. It is 2020, and I am doing something different starting this month. I am not going to be having a guest on for the next several weeks, and this programming that you're hearing right now is entirely organic. I did one session, I think, thus far, solo with my sidekick, Paradis, who I will introduce in a minute. But I just wanted to welcome you all back to the new year and let you know that this podcast is going to be a little different. But I think you'll like it, and we'll just see how it goes. So Paradis, you guys might have heard him in the past on this program. I interviewed him several months ago, and then I had him on once when I did my own podcast, and he is back, and he's going to be back with me every week, and he's out in LA. His podcast is called How the Culture Gets It Wrong, and his website, I should say, is projectequinox.net. Is that right, Andre?
Yes, darling.
All right, so there's Andre. Say hello, Andre.
Good morning, everybody.
So Andre is here with me because he's a perfect male version of what I do. He's out on the West Coast doing the same thing I'm doing in the Midwest. He's the male, I'm the female. We are all into the same thing, and I think that our conversations flow really well, which is why I've invited him to be a part of this going forward. So we're just going to see how it goes. And this week, I want to start by talking about the emasculation of men.
Oy.
Oy. Oy and ouch. And let me please back up a little bit, because I know that's hard to listen to. It's hard to hear. It's uncomfortable. But there's a couple of reasons why I want to begin this new year talking about this. First of all, I'm writing a piece as we speak on this issue.
Oh,
and
nice.
it's taking me a couple of weeks to get it together. So it's going to be for the Federalist, and it'll come out soon. And the last two people that I had on in December, you may know, Andre. One was Allison Armstrong, who I know you know because she's out there near you. And the other is, I don't think you know, is G.S. Youngblood. And here's how this all kind of came together. Allison, as you know, has this book called The Queen's Code. She has several books, actually, but the specific book called The Queen's Code, which came about as a result of her having been what she calls a frog farmer.
Yeah.
If you remember that, because I know you've taken her, I don't want to call them conferences, retreats, or what do you call the kind of work that she does?
I was involved in all the workshops.
Yeah.
And then, but I was also part of the machine. We were building some stuff together at one point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you'll know the phrase frog farmer. So just to recap for my listeners, the frog farmer is essentially a woman who disempowers her man, or who emasculates her man. And it's called a frog farmer. Gosh, now I can't remember do you remember that story?
Yeah, it's some women turn frogs into princes, and some women turn princes into frogs.
There you go.
So when you think that all men are blank, whatever you're going to put there, she basically says, it's kind of you. Take a look at you, because men are wired to provide and protect women. So if they show up any other way, it's you. They're responding to you.
Bang. Perfect. So she did this in her own marriage the first time. I know she was remarried for many years later. But her first marriage, she did this, she said. It lasted 7 years, and she basically the marriage ended, and that's what got her on her path of learning why and how not to do that. And then she went on to remarry and was the opposite kind of wife, and she understood men, and it all came together, and she wants to share it with the world. Okay, so that was in December. And then a week or two later, I interviewed G.S. Youngblood, who ironically is also out there in LA area. I don't know what's going on here. And he wrote a book called The Masculine in Relationship. And he, interestingly enough, same topic, same experience with his marriage. It ended, but on the other side, he basically said, I was emasculated, and I didn't know it until I did. And my wife closed herself to me in every way, including sexually. And the marriage ended. They had 3 kids. It tore him apart. He threw himself into understanding what the hell happened. Really very similar story to Allison's, only from the male side. And he wrote this book speaking to men. So hers speaks to women, the Queen's Code, and his speaks to men. So this, of course, is very much related to the work I do, but it was interesting, and what you do as well, but it was interesting to hear it phrased in such a way and have these similar stories from these 2 people. So I want to hone in on this specific uncomfortable topic of emasculation. That's how I'm going to start.
Yeah. Ooh, okay, bring it.
Okay. I am going to read to you a couple of emails. This is an example of the kind of stuff I see every day on my end that a lot of my readers and listeners don't, unless I bring it to their attention, obviously. So that's what I'm doing today. 2 of them are from men, one's from a woman. But this, as I say, I get this stuff all the time, and the theme is very, very similar. And in my relationship coaching, pretty much every individual or couple is essentially grappling with the exact same thing. I mean, really, coaching is just on repeat. I mean, that's why this issue is so critical and why I want to hone in on it. Okay, so here's an example from I don't know if I'm saying this right, Marcio. You might know that better. It's a different nationality. Marcio. Anyway, it's a male. And he was writing about this issue, and he said, unfortunately, modern women demand that we yield to them. However, they also demand that we lead them, especially and conveniently when things get out of control. That is somehow illogical and contradictory. Girls want to be empowered and to call the shots, and meanwhile they want to be led, nurtured, and protected. As we guys try to be in charge of what we're supposed to do, we are accused of being sexist, toxic, inconvenient, aggressive, and so on. Therefore, it's not a matter of stepping back. It's a matter of granting what girls demand, women demand, if we want peace, and we do not want to end up bankrupt at the nearest family court. Yuck. Okay, and I'm just going to read a couple of these to give you a feel of what we're talking about. Again, same theme, but different perspectives. This is from a man named Steve. In the interview, he's referring to my interview with G.S. Youngblood. He said that a man should step up and make some of the decisions. Excellent idea, and again, in principle, I agree, but the man will be wrong. You both used the idea of dinner, because we talked about never asking a woman where she wants to go for dinner. How many times a nice dinner is planned, even with reservations, and it came right down to it, and she wasn't in the mood for that kind of food? Worse, the fact that he didn't ask her to where she wanted to go wasn't taking into account her feelings. Why would a man make another decision on his own only to have it turned into a bad thing that he did? As a man, I'm in a catch-22. Okay, and then this last one's from a female, a woman, Christina. She's talking about she and her husband and who's supposed to lead. I'm working on letting my husband lead instead of doing it myself. We're always in fighting mode over everything, even how to do the laundry. It seems to me that part of male and female complementarity requires that I concede on certain things, but he should concede as well, so on and so forth. So what do I do? And then this last question from a man named Adam. Do you believe there is a check and balance system set up for the masculine-feminine dynamic? In other words, do you think there is a checks and balance system? So I'm reading those just quickly, and hopefully people got the gist of it. That's what's going on out there. You and I know this. These are different perspectives, but all about the same thing. So let's begin talking about how we got here, what you know to be the answer, so to speak. And and if you want, you can use that analogy of dance, which I think is so pertinent to this topic.
Yeah, well, so we got here, through, the feminist movement started in the 60s, which we understand was liberating. That was the whole point. It was liberating, equal pay, equal opportunity, right, for women. Fantastic. As we know, it was always present, but it wasn't popular because I know your family, right? Your family is proof of that. Women could do whatever they wanted, and it wasn't really popular to step in the world of men and compete in the world with men, like men. But we made that really popular, from the 70s on. So the past 30, 40 years, we raise all young women from kindergarten on to be strong, independent, and powerful, which is great, but we used to raise men that way, right? There's countries what are the Czech countries? This is interesting. I'm a little fuzzy on the data, but I forget which one. But they actually, by the age of 6, they give little boys pocket knives to escort their sisters and their mothers to the store, because they actually taught right from the beginning that they're supposed to protect the women. Little pocket knives, you know what I mean? Like that's sort of like they weaponize them now. It's a little over the top, but you see the different thinking. Here we empower women, which is great, but we disempower men. We shame men out of being masculine, which is the problem. Because
right?
Now you flip the switch or the script on nature, because it's really nature, right? Men want to provide and protect women naturally, like all women, especially the one in your life. But there's an instinct, if you get stuck on the side of the road, it's not a woman who's going to pull over because it's too dangerous for her. It's going to be a guy. And as soon as the guy pulls over, right behind him is going to be another guy to make sure that that guy is not a douchebag. And he's, so men do this instinctively to all women when they're healthy and normal. But when you shame them out of their masculine, that thing pulls back, and all of a sudden you find women literally feeling abandoned by men. And because men don't know what to do, right? If they're going to be shamed from stepping up, taking the lead, making decisions, being in charge, if you're going to shame them out of this, they stop, they pull back. So this is what we're seeing, right? So that leaves women empowered, but really abandoned in a lot of ways. And as you empower women, they get more vocal. And now we have this thing where everything is going to be her way, which means she has to be empowered and in control, and he has to do it her way.
And one of the arguments I'm making, interestingly, that I kind of got from Allison when she was on, which I thought was interesting, is that in effect, are they really empowered? Because
it's an illusion.
It's an illusion. Like, I want to make that clear, because I knew what you meant, but I want to make it clear to the listeners that when you disempower men, you actually disempower yourself, because what you're looking for is for him to be strong and competent and in charge and capable. If you're not allowing him to do that, then you're not getting what you want either in the end. So both people lose,
Completely.
And so we know it's a lose-lose scenario. The problem, I believe, and one of the things I'm writing about in this piece I'm putting together, is that it starts so young. And it starts with what I'm going to be naming as this, it's this taboo subject of single motherhood. Because when boys, we know that we are the number one country that taking the lead in single parent homes. I don't know if you knew that. That actually just came out a couple of weeks ago. We're dealing with such large numbers of mother-run homes and so much taboo and about being able to talk about what that ultimately means for a boy, to be literally raised solely by women, both in the home and, of course, in the schools, because the schools are predominantly female. So that lack of male leadership or role modeling is basically just cutting them off before they even have a chance to become to learn what it is to become a man, whereas a daughter of a single mother still has her role model. See, no one ever talks about this because it's so taboo. But we have to start at the root of it. That's really where it begins. You're dealing with years of boys just being surrounded by women and being taught and to be more feminine. And then when they get older and the decades go by, they're really stuck in this feminine mode.
Yeah, and they can't step up. They don't really, they've never been trained, or they have no role model as a male, a father. So the statistic, if you don't mind, the statistics of this: back in the 70s, 20% of black women were single mothers. 15% of Hispanic women were single mothers, and 5% of white women were single mothers. Nowadays, 70% of black women, 70% of black women are single mothers.
That's right.
55 Hispanic, and then now we're at 25 for the white women. So what's happening is now we have this, like, think about it, 70% of young black males are raised by women only, single moms. And what happens is this, the role modeling is done by mom, not dad. There's no how to be a male, influence that is organic and natural. And that's what a healthy boy, looks to become a man. How does a man function, and how does he show up? How does he step up? How do you provide and protect? So women will raise not by malice. It's just not being. A woman will raise will raise a guy, or like she would raise a girl, which is to be sweet and sensitive and talkative and connected, and through her feelings, and it has to feel nice, it has to be nice, it has to be aware of everything and everyone around. It's fantastic, but not at the cost of his masculine, which is really what happens. And ultimately, these guys cannot find themselves in that. They basically grew up thinking and feeling that women, because by the way, when you're a single mom, you're in your masculine, right? You're mama bear. So even the girls in the house don't even get the feminine essence. They get the masculine female. So these young girls are masculinized just by the nature of the setting, the setup, right? So they become manly. They have no daddy to teach them with the nurturing part of male. Like the daddy energy is different than men in the world energy. So they would never felt safe or feel safe in the world because they don't have a daddy to make them feel safe. So they become more manly than mom is, right? So now they're trapped in that paradigm. The guys have nobody to role model after. They're sweet and sensitive and talkative. They walk and talk through their feelings. They can't step up in the world. They can't compete with men. They know this. They're weak. And their subconscious knows this, so they're really edgy and angry,
frustrated,
and frustrated because they know they have no power because their power has never been developed, and mom did it, So a lot of guys turn against their moms, and it turns against. These are the guys that turn against women when they get to be adults, and these are the guys who cheat, steal, manipulate. You know what I mean? These are the ones that hurt women. These are the ones that hurt people because they're so insecure, unstable, financially, emotionally. Those are the dangerous guys. Masculine men are not dangerous. Feminine men are the insecure, unstable, dangerous. These are the ones that hurt. Seriously, these are all the guys in jails are feminine guys. Yeah. All the guys in jail, even though they look scary and super manly and tattooed to hell, are actually putting up this front, trying to be tough because they have no idea who the hell they are and how to be male. So they're all a bunch of girls in jails. I'm just saying. This is not...
that makes a good title for an article.
It's true, though, but that's not healthy masculinity, and this is what we're dealing with everywhere, which now... And then it came down to toxic masculinity. Well, that's what that is. That's not real masculinity. This is those guys who never stepped into it. Whew, did I just go off?
Yeah, no, that's okay.
That makes me angry.
I know. And just to be clear, it's not that single motherhood is the only way to have this problem. Now, there's also married couple homes where the woman rules the roost and the man has been completely disempowered and is weakened, and she calls all the shots. And you're going to churn out the same kind of experience there, because whether your father wasn't there or if he is there but he's too soft, you're still never going to be developed in your masculinity. So you're still lost as to what that looks like. Does your marriage or love life feel hard? I get a lot of emails from readers who are struggling in their relationships. Unfortunately, the help an individual or couple needs can rarely be answered in a series of back-and-forth emails. For this reason, I offer coaching for individuals who are struggling in their relationships and for couples whose marriages feel stuck. Just go to SuzanneVenker.com and click on Coaching at the top to sign up for a session with me. That's SuzanneVenker.com. So we're now embarking, here we are, it's 2020. We're going to hear nothing but, especially this election year, about this the so-called toxic masculinity stuff for sure, but then also what it means to be a man, and where have all the men gone? Like this is it's been going on for a couple of years already, but I think this year is going to be huge because of it being an election year.
Sure.
And the misperceptions and misconceptions about once you see emasculation, once you really see it up close, in my opinion, you can't unsee it. It's about getting people to see it to begin with and understand, because a lot of men don't understand their own disempowerment.
Right.
They think that's normal, and then they have these problems with the women, and they don't know what it is.
Right.
So the goal is to begin by helping people explain how you got here and how to correct it. And one of the things I've heard you talk about that I think was really fascinating that I want to cover is, it was in one of your recent episodes, is this idea of being over-nurturing.
Yeah.
You had a whole thing on over-nurturing, and I think it was primarily focused on women, but also men can be as well. So explain to people what over-nurturing, where that comes from, and how that plays into this whole thing.
Well, it's because in my research and my studies, and it's sort of, there's a basic psychology aspect to humans, right? You could actually backtrack, adults' behavior from their past. Obviously, we all have our injuries, I call it, but this one is, this one is in place in our culture, where you are reducing, just to say out loud, toxic masculinity, just those words means you're making half the people on the planet wrong for who they are. The instant disrespect. Imagine being a young boy, like, there's again, data flying through my head. I remember coming across this article in a high school where they actually put all the boys in the gym and have them pledge to never, ever rape a woman, and a young girl. And like, you don't have to do this, you idiots. What is wrong with you, right? Like, this is completely anti-cultural, anti-instinct for us to even... But they actually convince them, they teach the boys, you have a penis, so you're toxic. You have a penis, you're dangerous. You have a penis, you're a rapist, but you don't even know it, right? So get this, like, these are like young men. So that entire trying to feminize men, or trying to wake them up to their own maleness, but to shame them is completely destructive. Because what really needs to be for a young man, this is very different than a woman. For a young man to grow up healthy altogether, he has to build his own character. And to build his character, he has to challenge himself. He has to fight for it, right? He has to sort of learn to, they say, by the age of 10, as a mother, you should stop nurturing your boys, not your girls, completely two different things. You stop babying your boys by the age of 10, which means, he has to get up in the morning and set the alarm to catch the bus, because if he misses the bus because he didn't set up his alarm, that's on him, right? He has to learn to step into his own life and take care of himself, like by the age of 10. And so what happens in our culture when women are overly nurturing, or running the show, running the household, or they know there's no daddy, this over mama bear protection of making sure everybody's always good, and it's this kind of a beautiful thing in itself, but it doesn't work on boys. It kills and castrates boys, keeps them from stepping into their manhood. And their manhood is not to be dangerous and competitive and danger and killers. An appropriate man learns how to calibrate his masculinity, right? Like, there's a calibration of being competitive appropriately, to be controlling appropriately, to step into the world and go after what he wants and needs and is looking for, and how it's going to contribute to the world without being destructive. Do you know what I mean? There's a whole like this. These are all very, very easy to do, but every young man in the world has to find himself. He has to step into himself by challenging himself and conquering himself, his fears. So this is why you see like teenagers jump off the roof on their skateboards and busting their knees and teeth, and that's all a young guy competing with his friends and finding his mojo, challenging himself. These are all worth it, by the way. Busted teeth and bloody knees, and that's all. Like, it's a little crazy, but it's a way to find yourself. So if you keep a boy too safe, too secure, too comfortable, here it is, comfortable, too comfortable, ladies, too comfortable. When you baby him, that he cannot ever step into finding himself and build his character, he doesn't do it when he becomes a young adult, and he becomes the guy who can't step up, a guy who has no power, a guy who feels useless, and is rather be comfortable than going to work. And these are the guys, you say, what's wrong with you? And they go, well, why don't you get a job? Well, I don't feel like it. Yeah. I don't, who cares how you feel, right?
Right.
Like,
I mean, of course, this is, and then it's an epidemic. It's officially an epidemic, which
Absolutely.
is why you hear women, and of course, women are excelling, and they're saying, well, where are the competent, comparable men? I don't have anybody to marry. Right. I mean, it's not going to go away. It's going to get worse.
It's getting worse. And within this, we're destroying an entire culture, right? Like,
because families break down.
Families, when the family unit disappears, culture disappears, society goes away. Yep. So we're falling apart at 100 miles an hour in the name of what? Equality? In the name of what?
In the name of what? In the name of what?
You cannot shame men for who they are at their core. You want to encourage them to step up and become men of character, proud men who
grounded in their masculine. Let's call it
grounded in the masculine. That's appropriate.
Yes.
That all of this is appropriate. This is why they need men to mentor them. By the way, that's what fathers do. That's what coaches do. That's what grandfathers do. Uncles, any male. Put guys in team things with men, and this all organically takes place. That's the point.
You're right.
Keep them out of that.
I just can't even imagine coming up in today's day as a boy, because if you get it, they have a double whammy, because it's not just what's going on at home, what we've described with single moms or weak fathers or whatever, but they're getting slammed by the culture every day about masculinity in general. And then in school, I mean, they're getting it everywhere. So really, and to think and to point fingers at them is insane. We're the one who's creating this. We're creating this environment that makes it impossible for them to succeed. Yep. Everybody's got a role in this. Wives, parents, Hollywood, politicians. Yeah. That's all the culture. The media. We all have a role to play in what's happening with boys and men and the emasculation that is readily transpiring. I mean, we are to blame for that, not the men. So when all this finger pointing has to stop, because it's a waste of time, and it's just simply untrue. It's not. We got that way not because we just churned out a bunch of bad boys. They don't just come out that way. Yeah.
And it's dangerous, right? Like this whole thing about school shootings. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? This used to be a rare phenomenon, because there's always a kid or two in each school who's an oddball, who comes from a weird family, who can't socialize, who can't make friends, right? I mean, that sort of happens, and they're so awkward. And typically they snap when the girls, if they can't join the world of men, they can't be part of the men's world because they're so awkward. But they usually snap in their teenage years when girls start making fun of them. Mm. So like when they realize, so that's usually when they snap. They're 15, 16, 17 years old. They're full of testosterone, which is full of energy. Mm-hmm. But then they realize that they don't fit in anywhere. And when the women make fun of them, that's where they, my point is these guys were like oddballs here and there, whatever. But now, because of our culture and the schooling, we make them. Mm-hmm. We actually make them by the school load, by the truckload, by the bus load. We make them. So these shootings, I hate to say, I'm going to sound the alarm, are just the beginning. They're just starting.
Agreed.
It's just starting. And it's not about guns. The kid in Canada used a truck. He ran over like 15 women. I don't know if you heard about this one. Incel, that was about 2 years ago. Incel, like these young men who feel, incel is involuntary celibate. So basically, they're young men that no woman wants to have sex with. So they get really angry and they feel left out again by the whole. And then anyway, this kid jumped into a truck and plowed into a bunch of young girls at the mall and killed 15 of them. He didn't need a gun. My point is the same thing, right? Like this is just the beginning. So people are like gun control, and then toxic masculinity. We have to control. And the thing is, I understand honestly that if you think that masculinity in itself is dangerous, because men are that's the energy of testosterone, right? To compete, to push, to control, to win, to fight. Mm-hmm. If you think by softening that paradigm in men that they're going to be less dangerous, safer, more connected, right? Like I get that if you're stupid to not like read about this, it looks that way, right? Yes. If you soften men, they won't be dangerous,
right?
But if you read past, grab any basic psychology book, it's the other way around.
Complete opposite.
You have to empower men for them to step up and protect men, women, and children. Like they have to be powerful. Appropriate powerful, to protect women and children. These are the guys who protect you from the bad guys. Oh, we had all backwards. Okay, so let's reverse this damn thing because we're destroying our culture and our man.
So
Whew,
one of
I
the
just wanna,
biggest, yeah, that's okay. I know. I know.
ugh.
I get it. In addition to the single motherhood being a taboo portion of this, another big taboo is women out earning men or wives out earning their husbands. That is another big, taboo subject, but one that if you don't understand the whys of it, you're just going to get your back up because you have this idea that it doesn't matter who makes what and because we're all the same and what have you. But of course, we're not, and that's why when it happens, when you're in a relationship or a marriage like that, it's not working. And people want it to work. They don't understand because they're not allowed to talk about the fact that, look, when women out-earn men, you're basically cutting them off at the core because this goes back to the whole providing and protecting thing. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to be malleable about gender roles. I get that. Most people are. My husband and I certainly are. It's
Sure.
one thing for women to work outside the home. All fine. But when how do you say it? When you reverse it too much, I guess there's no other way to put that. When you go too far with the role reversal, you're going to hit a wall. And the reason for that wall is biological, not because society hasn't changed enough and it still has to evolve. It's because you've hit that biological wall where you're cutting him off from being able to provide for his family. He will never be happy. Ever. And he's swallowing that. He's frustrated by that. He doesn't know what to do with that because the world tells him that women are achieving and they're supposed to, and you've held them down for so long, so now it's their turn, and so on and so forth. So they step back and say, okay, but then they're miserable and they don't know what to do about it. And by the way, the woman's miserable too because he's no longer her knight in shining armor, so she doesn't respect him. She doesn't want to have sex with him. I mean, it's a freaking mess.
Oh, I mean, that's it right there. I mean, that's it right there. It's just, in the name of equality.
Yeah, right.
We're not. We're not equal. And I say this all the time. We're as equal as our genitals. Look down.
Right.
Look down. Like,
where do you see the similarity?
They're completely in opposition, but they're made to fit. Right? That's the point. They're made to fit together. So it's a complementary thing.
Yes.
We're actually built that way in our beings, right? We are complementary to each other. My character and what I bring to the table naturally with my wife complements her life, right? Like if we're all the same, check this out. You know how I have to say this, women are typically more emotional than men, right? Like you lose your temper more, you get more emotional, like whatever, right? We know this.
They hold on to things.
They hold on to things, whatever. So imagine if men were like this. Imagine having a fight when everybody loses control, right? And you see this happening with soft men, by the way, and feminine men. They actually start screaming and hollering and losing their like women, like lose their temper, right? Where a masculine man doesn't do this. A masculine man will actually just sit there, be the rock, stay quiet, let the storm pass, right? Which often is what she needs to get through it and calm down and get on the other side of it and sort of get you know what I mean?
That's a big part of what Youngblood and I were talking about in December is that whole idea of creating safety and not being affected. When she's out of her element, instead of looking at her with anger, look at her with, well, he didn't use the word pity. That's not, maybe that's a little too strong of a word, but look at her with sadness, like she's out of control. She's not, it's not personal. It's her out of control of herself, and it's your job to not be affected by that. The less you're affected by that, the quieter she becomes. If you up the ante, she'll up the ante.
Of course. And the more the faster she'll go through it.
Yeah.
If you just what do you call it? If you just sort of hold the space for the storm sort of passes really quickly. If you jump in there. So my point is as instinctively as human beings, we're built in opposition in character and in temperament on purpose. Yes. We need women. Women are emotional. Fine, beautiful. You're more connected to your spirit. You're more connected to feelings and emotion. You're more connected to community and people. Like that's your paradigm. That's what makes you better mothers, because you have this super awareness of people. We don't. We're aware of what we need to keep the thing going, right? The outside world, the machine of life, money and competing and fighting and conquering and make sure the household is safe and that everybody so it's two different machines, but put them together, beautiful cocktail here.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
I know you'll go on, but I just wanted to say something about the analogy to dancing because that's a perfect segue there.
Yeah. I come from a ballroom background, myself, and I met my wife in my dance class. And the metaphors for dancing and relationships, as I learn this material, as I step into this material, the metaphors are fantastic. Like if you watch a ballroom couple dance, the beauty of this, right? This beautiful, feminine, sexy woman that everybody's looking at, right, is doing one part of the equation when he's doing an entirely different part of the equation, right? So they don't both control this thing, right? They're in harmony where she gets to hold her frame, hold herself. She's not passive, by the way. Everybody, listen here. This is a relationship. Mm-hmm. The woman is not passive, but she is responding to his lead, mm-hmm. right? She's like responding to his lead. It's like pilot, co-pilot. Mm-hmm. They have to be together, but it's not the same job.
And of course, that's where the big overarching piece there to that is trust. And trust is where, if it's missing, that's where it all goes awry. And that goes back to childhood and everything we were talking about before.
Boom, 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 boom. You get it, right? So it's not you cannot have a beautiful couple that you sit there and watch and go, wow, look at them, if they both don't do their part. And that's really the dynamics of men and women dynamics, relationships. You need one of each in order for it to work.
So I have a question
Complementary.
for you. Were you and your wife, so you and your wife, interestingly enough, I don't know how this came to be, but we're both married roughly the same number of years. We have one of each sex, kids, roughly the same age.
You and I, yeah.
You and I.
Yeah, we have the same story.
Did you guys ever struggle and then have to figure this out on your own? Or was it always natural for you guys?
Well, because I was a dancer, I have to say, looking back, I probably I was probably too feminine for some of the stuff. Though I had my own business and I worked things out and I was masculine in all the ways and I managed to make the money and, mm-hmm. Buy a house and all this mm-hmm. stuff, I would let her lead too many things. Mm-hmm. And what happens with that is the cost of that was she got burnt out. She mm-hmm. got tired. She was taking on things that we kind of just sort of that slid into place, mm-hmm. dynamic, and that kind of by itself stuff that I didn't want to take on that. If I didn't, she did, which mm-hmm. is normal, right? Mm-hmm. If the guy doesn't do it, you got to do it.
Someone's got to do it.
It's the same thing when you're dancing. If if his lead is soft, she's going to try to pick it up. Like it's just instinctual. That's the nature of the beast. But and I've learned as I learned this material and stepped into myself and take a look at myself, I really I got to just square off here, for me and for her. And the more I did, the more masculine I felt, the more solid I felt, the more I could take on and the more confident, because it builds confidence, right? When you handle your stuff,
yep.
It does the same thing to women, but you don't want to be masculine in your love relationship because you're killing the guy. Mm-hmm. You're becoming his mother, and that is the disaster, mm-hmm. in the making. So the more I stepped into me and my masculine essence, the more she got to let go and flow into feminine essence, which brought back all the loveliness to her and the connectivity, the feminine essence, the what makes her shine and glow and radiate in the world, because she's not burnt out. So it's the beautiful, beautiful mix when we both step into our size.
I think a lot of people struggle with the chicken or egg scenario.
Yeah.
With this whole dynamic, because they want to say, well, I try this, but he or she doesn't respond, or why should I have to go first, or how do I change if he won't or she won't? And I always tell people, depending on who I'm talking to, it really doesn't matter who goes first because whoever goes first, the other one's going to have no choice but to respond. So I've spent all these years talking to women and focusing on them that I finally decided I'm going to do something solely for men. By basically saying, look, if she is this way and she's not going to read my book, The Alpha Female's Guide to Men in Marriage, for example, let's say, because I've had a lot of men be like, I really want my wife to read this, but I can't get her to. What do I do? Do I strategically put it by her bedside or what? And you can't make someone read anything, but you can change yourself, and then she will automatically have to change. And that can be very hairy. And it can be it could be a long process, actually, of disentangling yourself from the dynamic that you had. So I don't know if you do this as well, but it doesn't really matter whether I'm talking to the husband or the wife or the man or the woman. You have the control all by yourself.
Yeah, and that's exactly the work I do with my clients, whichever, whether it was the male or the female, because, men respond to women so much more than you can imagine, even though we seem to just sit there and really have no reaction. We're completely responding to you. So when women come at me with, men are all, I'm like, no, men are not all. This is you. They're responding to you. Not to be crass about it, but it's what it is, right? When you say, and the same thing, women are all, no, dude, it's you. Part of the stuff I do with my clients is if the guy finds himself sort of disempowered and feeling frustrated and, she runs him over constantly and in that he feels mothered. Ladies, if you really want to kill the dynamic between your man and you, keep mothering him, see what happens, right? Because nobody wants to have sex with their mom. I'm just saying, right? So when you tell him what to do, when you give him advice, when you push on him, when you say you should try this, we should do this, we'll do this, we'll make more money. The more you tell him what to do, the more you go after him, the more you're trying to fix him or make him act right. You become his mom, and I promise you, you're gonna stop having sex, and then he's gonna end up having sex with somebody else, and you'll blame him for it when you actually started doing it. I'm just saying.
Bingo.
Every guy who has an affair is saying the same thing. So not to excuse that, but this is where it starts. Yep. So what I do with my clients, I go, so dude, just kind of, step up, right? Just start putting the brakes on her. Oh God, are you kidding me? I go, no, just say, no, we're not doing that. No, this is not going to happen. No, we're not buying this. And then she's going to get all bent out of shape if she's not used to him stopping her. But I'm telling you, the moment you go, stop, no, this isn't happening. No, all of a sudden he gets really sexy. She gets all like, oh, I can't believe you can't.
Yep.
All of a sudden he's got some power. All of a sudden this guy's got sexy. Again, this is all instinctive. That's all instinctual stuff, right? This is women respond to power because men with power can protect them. Period. So when a guy steps up and stays, a rock, it's actually attractive to women, and she finds him sexy. She can respect him, and that's the power dynamic. The magnetic
component to it, yes.
Component to it that actually keeps us want to have, want to get get together. That's a magnet. So you have to have that.
And of course, you can be married for many years and be friends, and and things will be relatively peaceful, but you're going to be very frustrated internally by just having that, of course. So it may make for a peaceful household if you get along relatively well, but at the end of the day, in my opinion, that chronic frustration is building on both of their parts. They just don't realize what they can have, and they don't know how to go about it.
Well, because when culture says equality, and again, if we're both sort of about the same, so now everything is more fair, and then we sort of get to groove there. However, like two magnets, you actually neutralize the masculine and feminine dance, and all of a sudden there's no dancing happening. There's nothing going on. You got flat energy, and no one's interested in anything, and nobody's fighting, but nobody cares either.
Are you seeing this, Andre? I don't know if we've talked about this in the millennial generation.
They're so screwed.
They are so screwed, and it's sad because they have no idea.
They
literally believe they have figured out how to have a relationship better than their parents and grandparents. They think their friendship and their equality, mentality is actually the key that we were all missing, in our lives. And meanwhile, you look at them and you think, oh my lordy, the red flags that we see right now are glaring. And I really worry for that generation.
Well, I think they're so screwed because, but I think, that's amazing because they actually live it, right? They were raised in that system. So they think it's true and right. Yeah. But everybody I talk to, most everybody, but until they get to be older and they really go, this is all crap. Yeah. But most everyone, even our age group, everybody thinks that, finally in the history of mankind, we actually had a place where we finally empowered women and softened men. So now we have a place where we can actually be equal and group together. And I go, well, that's fine for money and business, fine. Yeah. But do this in your relationship, see what happens. Divorce every 10 years.
Well, and women aren't finding men. And the men have pulled back so much that they can't even find a man to marry. Right. And yet they don't even realize that it's their narrative. It's it's the lesson that they were taught that's causing this problem. There's no connection. There's no connecting of the dots but it's
And
just so obvious.
Yeah, and these guys, I mean, I was on a panel, a men's panel, with four guys, and we're talking about what it's like to be a man, and how we. Oh, I love that. It was like the question was like, what do you love the most about women? So as men, we're basically stepping up, teaching a group of women what it's like from our perspective and what we love most about women. Most women have never heard this, right? So, and it's like, it's typically an elder guy, and it's a middle-aged guy, and a guy in his 30s, and a young guy, perspective of age, because it's predictable also what they're going to say depending. And this, we're all show up with like, what we love the most about women, and the fact that you make us better and kind of bring us into our hearts, because we're kind of stuck in our heads, and all this beautiful stuff that we all know and feel that mostly we don't talk about because we just know it. And so, anyway, and then this it goes down to this 22-year-old little, yeah. And he starts saying, and this is what happens, right? When you feminize a man too much, it becomes all about him. Have you noticed these guys you don't have a conversation with? It's always a monologue. It's always him talking about himself. Yeah. So on stage, instead of the question is, what do you love most about women? And he starts telling everybody and us, and arrogant about it, that he was raised by his mother, and he really knows how to listen to a woman. And I was raised by my mother, and I was raised to be very sensitive to women, and I listen to women, and I really pay attention, and I really care, and I really ask them always what they want, and I'm respectful, and self-righteous and arrogant about it. He's looking at us like, you guys have no clue, because I'm the one who figured it out, because my mom raised me right. And he was such a disrespectful little bastard. We almost threw him off the stage because the women all frown. The women in the audience are like, "What the hell is this nasty little bastard?" And acting like he's this like the gift of God to women, and then better than the rest of us. But that's what they actually believe. Raised by his mom to be like sweet. Disgusting.
Yeah,
disgusting.
And even if the ones that aren't saying it are thinking it, if they were raised in a similar way, and they're very proud, very proud. And I say, give them about another 10 or 15 years. I want to hear from you. I want to hear about all the sex you're not having. I want to hear about why your marriage isn't working, and then I'll help you then. Because until you get it, you're blissfully unaware. Really, you really just don't even see it until you can see it. So it's anyway. Just to close this out a little bit and give an example of what I just read that I think is a perfect emasculation of men and very new is this new commercial by Booking.com. It's a new booking commercial where the woman proposes to her boyfriend with a ring and has a trip planned for him if he says yes. So basically, it's just this whole ad showing the woman waiting and getting down on a knee, and the man walks up to him. It's just exactly what we've always known is the way it works, and then it's completely reversed. And you look at it with your mouth open and think, no. Like everything about it is so wrong. And I'm going ding, 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 ding. And you look at this, and this is supposed to be, progressive and forward. This is the way we're going now.
The new way.
Yeah, the new way. And you think, oh my God, that is a dead marriage before it's even going to get off the ground. It's so bad. And people, but people don't really understand, I don't think, a lot of people anyway, why I'm reacting that way. Why would you react so viscerally to that? And why isn't that okay? And when you know oh my gosh, how do I say this? When you know this stuff so well, it's so glaring that where do you even begin? The fact that he didn't step up to the plate, the fact that he doesn't even know if he wants to marry you, the fact that he's not capable of asking himself, the fact that you have to ask is setting yourself up for a lifetime of misery.
Of course. And then how good do you feel as a woman, right? Like, take it back to the basics. As a woman how good do you feel never knowing really if he likes you enough to step up, that he never managed to put a ring on you, that he's never done anything for you, that, unless you do it, nothing happens. So does he really like you, love you? Because you're the one making it all happen. So that question mark, which is your self-doubt, by the way, that is inside of your being as a woman, right? Am I lovable? Am I really lovable as a woman? Like that's just your core self-doubt. you just trigger it all over the place for yourself. This is why I say you don't get to do any of this if you want to really feel connected and bonded and loved. He has to step up. He has to choose you. You can't make him choose you, by the way. I always say this, right? Like, ladies, you don't pick the guy. Mm-hmm. He has to pick you.
Yeah.
He has to come and go, wow, you're the one. Just something about you, and step into your life, and then, prove himself that he's valuable, capable, to be the guy who will take care of you in some ways, in all the ways ultimately, and step up and say, be my girl. I'm going to protect you forever. That's the ultimate, flattery. That's the ultimate, like, gift. That's the ultimate feeling safe as a mm-hmm. woman. The other way, disaster. You're his mother the rest of your life, and you'll hate him in a few years. You froze.
No, I thought that was so good. I'm just holding up my hand. Everybody, I have to tell you this. Andre and I can see each other, but you can't see us, so you probably don't realize what we're doing. But I'm telling him to stop right there because that was a beautiful ending, and I want to cut him off. Okay. All right. We will pick this up next week for sure. Yeah. And do it again because that's what we love to do, and hopefully people do too. And we will just see how it goes this month. Does that sound good?
Yeah, no, fantastic. I mean, to me, and you get this because my clients are all the same. My clients come at me when they've tried all this crap and it's not working, and they realize like this is something really wrong, mm-hmm. and nobody can answer the question, nobody can explain to them, and then they get to you or me, and they go, apparently you got something different. What you got? Let me have it because my life's not working. So if we just manage to get that question out there today, that people, women, men, can just go and see, this isn't working, mm-hmm. because ultimately what we talk about, and doing this with my clients, and I'm sure the same with yours, is when we start talking about it, they go, like it resonates, right? And it goes, well,
it's a relief too, because I want them to know, you know what? It's not really you. It's really not you. It's you've been so raised wrong about how this works, and you just simply don't know what you don't know.
Yes, and it resonates, and all of a sudden there's a little hope and a smile on their face. And so what else do you know that I don't know? I will step in. Let's go, right? It's fantastic.
Awesome.
So I think we just did it today, I hope.
Awesome. Someday we got to do it together on stage somewhere. I'm committed to we got to do that. Maybe this year. Awesome. Okay, Andre, so see you until next week then. We'll talk again. Have a good week.
You too, Dottie.
Okay, talk to you later. Well, that wraps up another edition of the Suzanne Venker Show. Don't forget to tune in next week when we talk with Andre again. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. And please do take 2 minutes to give us your review. You can also go to my website, SuzanneVenker.com, and you can get in touch with me there if you have a comment or a question, as well as get a free ebook if you become a subscriber. So watch out for that. And that's about it. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good week.